Hello everyone, Nathan P. Butler here, and this is mini Q&A number 19 here on the channel. Mini Q&As are meant to be short Q&A videos, typically using questions from the previous Q&A's comments, and then gathering questions in its comments for the next one. So the way that'll work is at this time I am answering a few questions that were posted underneath mini Q&A number 18, and then if you want questions answered in the next of the Q&As, which would be number 20, sometimes it's multiple, but my guess would be just one, number 20, then make sure you put your questions in the comments of this video. You can always tell which Q&A videos were recorded at the same time, so you know when you can kind of ask questions that will be gathered for the next batch by what I'm wearing, but this time it is just one video with the Cobb Vanth shirt. Here, yes, it is Cobb Vanth, not Boba. Doesn't say the character anywhere there. So we have 3 questions this time that we're going to take a look at. And again, if you want to have questions answered in the next one, just drop them into the comments. I won't answer in the comments unless you tell me specifically to answer there rather than in the next video. So we have a question here from the Sony Wonder and Happy Madison Fan Productions, who asks, I don't know if someone has asked this before, but what is your favorite piece of Lucasfilm media that isn't Star Wars or Indiana Jones related? That really kind of narrows it down quite a bit. If you're talking about media in general, I would say probably Willow, I would guess. I haven't seen Willow a bunch. Actually, one of the things I don't think I've ever shown on the channel from the Star Wars Home Video Library, even as like an offshoot, is I actually have quite a few Willow home video items. There haven't been many released in the US, but I have either most or all of them here. You know, they're just kind of a side item here for my Star Wars Home Video Library because I'm remembering back to that April Fool's joke, right? Where they worked Willow, both the film and the novels that I guess are now non-canonical, into the Star Wars universe in the hyperspace, or not hyperspace, databank entries. But yeah, I would say probably Willow stands out to me as far as non-Star Wars, non-Indiana Jones, Lucasfilm stuff, though that is a pretty narrow window of stuff, I would say. Though I will, I have to mention also, there are behind-the-scenes type things that I particularly like that be, I guess, considered Lucasfilm media. Like, maybe? I guess the recent Light and Magic about ILM, that would have been a Lucasfilm production, I believe. But as far as actual physical media, if that's what the question here is, it would have to be something Willow-related. But I really couldn't tell you which. There's a pretty solid little, I think it was a 2-disc special edition or something at one point. But probably just the newest version with any bonus features for Willow. I tend to not be a Lucasfilm guy. I'm not grabbing everything that's produced by Lucasfilm or focusing in on everything produced by Lucasfilm. There are folks who do. I know Matthew Hardesty focused on stuff that is specific to Lucas and Lucasfilm in general, but Lucas specifically. I really don't. For me, it's typically a Star Wars focus that's very narrow, which actually gets us into the next question that kind of ties into that previous question, which is from Jeremy Goss, which is, did you ever go down the rabbit hole of Indiana Jones / Young Indiana Jones collecting of episodes, VHS, Laserdisc, DVD / Blu-ray, etc.? And the answer to that is not really. I sort of did, in the sense that I did want to have the ability to watch all the Indiana Jones stuff, but it wasn't like a collecting thing. I got the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles when they were partially released on VHS. I got all of those, along with that era's VHS box set, I guess it was, of the Indiana Jones films. And then as the Indiana Jones films have been reissued in boxed sets or special collections, I think still have the Blu-ray set, which I can't remember if it had all 4 films or just the 3. And then I do have the box set that has the 4K version of the 4 films in it. As far as Young Indiana Jones, I eventually got the 3 boxed sets of the series. Really loved the historical bonus content that was there. In fact, used some of that within my classes as little clips when I was teaching in a face-to-face school. But by and large, didn't really like rewatching that series. That was a very, I mentioned before, in that video on ranking the Star Wars films, that for me, pacing is a huge thing in film, and holy crap, the pacing of the Young Indiana Jones series most of the time was really freaking slow. So it wasn't a series I was going to really rewatch very much. So I no longer have those. I either sold them off, gave them away, whatever, years ago. So at this point, I know I've got the 4K set of the films. I think I still have the Blu-ray set of the films because I don't think all the content crossed over, maybe? It's been a while. But otherwise, I don't have any of that stuff left. It was never a collecting thing, though. It was I want to be able to watch all of them, and I want the best version to watch that is available now. That was basically it. Again, I am not a Lucas or Lucasfilm collector per se. I'm specifically Star Wars collecting in that regard. And then a question here that's not really entirely a question, but because of the short length of the mini Q&A here with those two questions, I figure we can work it in here as well. This is from Brian Sales, I believe I'm saying that correctly, S-A-Y-L-E-S, who says, this isn't really a question, more like a request for counseling from one collector to another. Last year, I had a Wile E. Coyote moment. When I talk about the Wile E. Coyote moment, I talk about that in the Saga on Home Video, both first and second edition, in the prologue, the opening, the introduction. Basically, the idea that, you know, when you're trying to collect something, you have that moment where you're like Wile E. Coyote who's gone off the cliff, and now is the moment when you look down and you realize how deep the rabbit hole goes, so to speak, on collecting, and you have a moment where you can scramble and get back to the ledge and save yourself from collecting and the future expenditures and everything else, or just say, woohoo, and just fall, right? Dive straight down into it, knowing you're getting yourself into a very long stretch of a lot of fairly expensive, at times, collecting. That's what I call my Wile E. Coyote moment in the book. That is what he's referring to. So he says, last year I had a Wile E. Coyote moment when I decided to buy one copy of each DVD release of a certain movie. He never does specify what the movie is. I thought there would only be 3 or 4 max. So far I have 13 DVDs, and on November 8, 2022, the 14th DVD release, the 20th anniversary edition, will be out. The collector part of my brain is excited, but the ever-shrinking rational part of my brain is freaking out. Can you please share some kind words with me? Thank you. So, with any type of collecting, I have the same advice that I always try to give. I believe this is actually in the This is the Way advice for collectors part in Volume 3 of A Saga on Home Video 2nd edition, which I think is also in the tips for collecting in the 1st edition. But basically, the things that I would say to consider is, you know, never overstretch yourself in terms of physical space and in terms of what you can afford when you are collecting, right? If it's going to put you in a financial tough spot, wait or don't do it, right? Collecting something is not worth putting yourself into a difficult financial situation. If that means that you wait and get it later, and it might be at a jacked up price, at least you're not putting yourself in a tough spot now. You can wait until you're in a better position, even if it costs more, to be able to get it. Because it's not about necessarily what the exact price is. It may be, you know, tens of dollars more later, or more than that later, in terms of inflated price on the secondary market. But it's not about the number, it's about the situation you're in and the context of it. Will purchasing this thing that costs, say, $100 make it difficult for me to pay my bills this month? Will it give me extra stress when I'm dealing with other expenses this month? And so on, that kind of thing. So, you know, use your better judgment with that. Never put yourself in a bad financial situation because of collecting. And from a physical space standpoint, you know, unless you are okay with having stuff sitting in boxes, and maybe that's even what you're running out of space for, though in this case it doesn't sound like it, always, you know, consider the physical space as well. There was a point where I had to choose. Was I going to fill the office with the Star Wars home video stuff here, or not? And that was a point where I had, you know, a couple of shelves full of home video stuff, but everything else you may recall was Star Wars books everywhere, because I had an almost complete library, or pretty much complete library, except the RPG stuff, of the Star Wars books and comics, at least one release of every single one. And it was taking up a ton of space, and I had to choose. You must choose! It was either free the space for more home video stuff and really let that keep going, or something had to give. I had to cut back probably on the home video stuff or find another place to put it if I was going to keep all the books, right? It was either sell the books or cut back on the home video, and I chose to get rid of the books. So physical space is a big consideration. Now, if you're talking about just the compulsion of it, that is... what's the line for from Hamlet, you know, or master it as you will. You got to get control over it, essentially. So it may be a compulsion, but it's a compulsion you can control. That it's more of an urge. I want this. Maybe even I need this if I'm going to continue collecting, or I need this for the collection to be complete, and I want it to be complete. Make sure it's the want part that is dominating, not a need part that is dominating. Even if it's I need this to finish the collection, it's not I need it to finish the collection because I need to finish the collection. It's I need this to finish the collection because I want to finish this collection. Keep it in the want area of your mind, because that will separate it out from the things that are true necessities, right? As opposed to things that are luxuries, which collecting basically is. No matter how much I might feel like I need a certain release to complete something, it is still a luxury, it is still a want. It is still a different category than the stuff that I need to otherwise spend money on that are sort of basic needs around the house, survival stuff, family stuff, whatever it might be. So keep it in perspective, I guess, is the key that I'm getting at. Whether we're talking financially, space-wise, or need versus want, keep it in perspective. And if it is something you want to do that will bring you joy, that will bring you utility, speaking as an econ teacher, and it is not going to be an issue with storage, and it is not going to be an issue with finances, then go for it, right? It's an okay thing to do. It's not putting you in a tough spot, and it is something that you want, and apparently you're deciding, again, going back to the econ teacher thing, that the opportunity cost is worth it, right? Opportunity cost. You make a choice. Every choice requires giving up something else, a trade-off of something else. In this case, if you buy it and continue collecting it, then the opportunity cost is turning to something else, using the money for something else, using your time and effort in collecting on something else. And if you deem that this is what you want to do and you're willing to accept the opportunity cost of what you could have done with that money or could have done with that time or collecting or whatever, then an econ teacher would say that is a rational economic decision to make. So, but it's all about perspective. It's never, I don't think, ever truly about need, but it can feel like it. The compulsion makes it feel like it. We have to remember that it's not need. And I definitely have fallen in that place myself. You know, remember the amount of stuff I was selling off to try to have the cash to get all the stuff I was trying to get when the Rise of Skywalker and Skywalker Saga stuff all came out at one time across multiple regions. It's a matter of keeping that perspective and avoiding putting yourself in a tough spot. I don't think there's anything wrong with collecting and wanting to collect more and being fascinated by something enough that you want to collect it. I'd be pretty much a hypocrite to ever turn somebody away from that. But my personal experience has been that you have to keep perspective for it. As long as you keep perspective and make rational judgments on it, and you can tell you're making rational, not impulsive judgments, you're fine, I think. At least in my personal experience. But I am either a good person to give advice on this because of managing a collection that has gotten so large over the span of about the last decade of Star Wars home video stuff, or I am a cautionary tale, avoid doing anything that I do. Your mileage will certainly vary. So that'll wrap up this mini Q&A. Again, if you have any questions not related specifically to Star Wars home video, feel free to drop them into the mini Q&A number 19, this one's comments, for me to use in number 20 when that is recorded. Always keep an eye out for the newest one, though, to make sure that you are posting your comments in the newest one, because that's where I grab for subsequent ones. And then if you have any Star Wars home video questions, keep an eye out for the From the Star Wars Home Video Library Q&As. Episode number 10 of that is the current one. I'm about to record number 11 probably immediately after this. So look out for number 11 to post questions for number 12 as of the time you would be seeing this video. It'll be released around the same time. With that, thank you all for your questions, and I will catch you on the next mini Q&A. Have a good one.